and my father started showing symptoms, and all the four of us had to get tested. And we were more certain that the four of us would be positive because since we've come in such close contact with each other. But I tested negative somehow, and it was weird because my parents, they decided to shut me in a room to keep me safe, and they stayed outside in the house. So I was locked. I mean, at the end of 2 days I was claustrophobic almost, because there were two feelings. One is primarily helplessness. I could not help my parents in any way. I knew they were sick. There was too much. The viral load was too much, in fact, in all three of them, and I knew I couldn't do anything, which felt extremely horrible because I was crying, but there was no one to, maybe listen to me. On all I could do was maybe talk to my friends about it, and that's it. I could not tell my parents also because they're already going through things, and I didn't want them to worry about me. Like my mom, she would still video call me like every 2 hours and ask if I was doing fine, although she was the one who was actually sick. And with all of this, although I was still negative, but with all the fear and stress, even I felt sick. I mean, I did not have COVID, but I got all other things such as body pain and stuff, like the normal symptoms of COVID, but not the infection. So it was a very tough time because the parental distance that comes in, and knowing that your parents are infected, it feels horrible. And the isolation, especially, you're all alone. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Maybe you don't even know. So somewhere, although you try to avoid the fear, but somewhere you also have the fear that you might lose people who are very, very, very close to you. And that fear, sleeping with that fear, is very, very difficult, especially for me, because I was also going through a lot of other things like every adolescent does. So there are also a lot of other social issues and stuff with friends and things like that. So added to this was this big thing, and we were regretting that why did we even travel in the first place. So that at that point of time you feel like wish we had not done this, and it is really bad. Although after 3 days I was shifted to my cousin's place. I got my CT scan done, which was also fine, and I was completely, there was no chance of an infection. So I went to my cousin's place because it was getting difficult staying alone. But even there, although there were people around, I still had the constant fear till my parents and my brother did not test negative. The constant fear of not being with them, and there were a lot of things. There were nightmares. It was not a good time, and I would constantly keep questioning my mom, when am I coming back home? So yeah, the helplessness and the fear together combined is a lethal combination, and it definitely hit me so hard that I was still not in a very pleasant situation for even 1 month after they tested negative. It took time to cope up. So yeah.
Right. So thank you for sharing, and I think it's so important. Uh, we hear so many stories, Saloni, like what Sneha just narrated. Quickly, I want you to respond, not a longer one. How does one? What are some of the things that Sneha can do? What are the things that we could do when we are in that helplessness situation? A lot of us have been in that or would land up. So, what would be some of the recommendations when you're stuck in a corner like that, literally, like what Sneha was?
Yeah, and I think what Sneha described was absolutely fatigue, fear, and worry, and how it can, in spite you not having any COVID system, feel absolutely more sick than people who had COVID system. So here, no, Sultan, I was
Yes,
helping a
most
lot of
certainly.
people by giving them small acronyms. I said, first thing is fit family moves forward. So whosoever is not having COVID system, see to it that you are doing a lot of physical exercises. And I said, even 4 by 4 feet, one skipping rope, one app on your mobile which gives you a 15-minute workout, anything which works for you. Remember, we have to keep our body fit, and only eating all kinds of tablets is not going to help. Exercise is going to help. And then I said that exercises secretes a lot of endorphins and dopamine, both very important for you to be able to handle this. So one was that which I had recommended a lot of people to do. The entire family get together, put in a nice music, whatever you enjoy, and just do some exercise. So it is social connect. It is being with each other, a happy time which your mind is right now mapping. that, okay, at the current moment, we are all happy. That is what mindfulness is all about. Be in the moment, right? Second thing which we have been helping a lot of families, and if people can still do it, will help them, is you fight fear with faith. And what is your faith system? It can be anything which you have belief in. Your old memories, pictures of past vacations of happy times, anything which is going to create happiness and bonding in your mind. Because all our emotions, they have a contradiction, or maybe it is a continuum. So like one end is anger, another end is happiness. So if you're happy, you cannot be angry. Like when you are doing something with a purpose, you don't feel tired, isn't it? So the idea is always keep increasing the other content. So fit family forward, fighting fear with faith. And the third is deal with it, don't deny it. Because the fundamental in psychological well-being is, if you are dealing with something, your mind and your body will work towards it. But when we go into denial, that is where we start moving into a circuit of darkness. So we need to keep creating new programs. All of you understand technology language more. So your laptop is like your human mind. For everything, there is a program. So we actually, because COVID is a new scenario, and Sultan here, I and you are absolutely the same age as Sneha and Arav when it comes to being in COVID. Because everybody here is a toddler. We have to just stop acting that we are adults, so we know it more. I think it is time where everybody gets down to the same level and we say COVID is an equalizer. First time in my life, it is the first time in your life also. So let's deal with it together. And I think those are some things which have really helped a lot of families to fight fit.
Perfect. Stay fit, have faith, and deal with that issue. And I think the third point is so very relevant, because we've heard the fitness part of it. The faith part of it is normally instilled to us through parents, society, religion, culture. But I think the most important point that you brought out was, don't be in denial. Deal with it. Uh, positivity is one of the best ways of, coming out, उभरने के लिए जिस भी situation में हम हैं. So Arav, let me come to you. When you have been talking to your friends, you've not met them too often over the past year. What are some of the problems that you discuss? What are some of the challenges that you've heard your friends talk about? Can you take us through some of the conversations you all are having?
Sure. So initially, when the first wave came around, all of us were quite optimistic that we would get opportunities to spend time on ourselves with our family, and get to watch Netflix all day and spend time on ourselves. And we started picking up many hobbies and started fostering ourselves. So usually around that time, whenever we talked, we were quite enthusiastic about the things that we were learning, the new things that we were seeing, and hopefully making plans when the pandemic ends, how we are going to do things and how things would be quite different. But eventually, as the pandemic started increasing, this feeling of, at least in my aspect and most of my friends, this feeling of protective environment that we were in, it started quite vanishing, because we were seeing cases in our own neighborhood. So of course, we were going to be adults this year or the next year, but to come terms with reality so soon, and thinking that you could be one of the victims, was a really mind-blowing aspect, which was really bizarre. And it created this feeling of emptiness and lack of motivation, which led to sloth and laziness, because you didn't have any motivation or any will to do something, because it felt unnecessary and there was no interest in doing things. And even the hobbies that we were starting learning, they eventually faded out after 4-5 months, because it felt like we were trapped in a loop with every single day was like the one before it. So it felt meaningless doing things and activities, and even the routine and discipline kind of vanished. So this feeling of emptiness and lack of motivation and inspiration was really did tarnish a lot of these students. And even the students that were able to study continuously and have their objectives in mind, they were not able to concentrate completely and go through their regular aspects of life. Even being optimistic, especially when the second wave came, being optimistic felt like a sin, because you were more worried about how things were happening around you. So optimism was something, it felt like you have to be prepared for every single thing that might happen. So that was one thing that most of my friends went through.
Right. I really like what you kind of ended your thing is in the second wave, being optimistic was almost like a sin. And how I hope the authorities that we kind of heard what you just said, because that is a fact of life where we are not optimistic about what's happening. And it is very, very challenging. So Roshan, let me come to you now and ask you a question which is a little more closer to you in terms of your field of work. The kind of exposure children have on screens, and you're seeing it at home as well. You also play the role of the other side of the screen where you create content, right? If you look at a recent study, it is said that panic buying. We saw that on news articles across the world. Even in India, there's a whole sense of uh, you know huge consumption happening online, as well as not just content but overall materialism as well. So, from your vantage point, when you look at kids and what they're consuming, put on both the hats and talk us through how do you feel as a parent and how do you see, because as a content creator, it's an opportunity for you to have more and more consumers, taking up your content. So talk us through both sides. How do you see it from this whole content consumerism perspective?
So see, the first thing that happened was that everybody ended up, Sultan, having more time on their hands, right? Because particularly the time you used to waste in commute, the time you used to waste in getting up, getting ready, all of that time suddenly was free. Now people had to make that time useful, and that's what people said, what can we do with that time? Our dear common friend, from Ernst & Young, Ashish Firvani, he at a conference very rightly said that the three things they noticed from consumers at large was engage me, second was educate me, and the third was make me visible. So what happened is, as content creators, the general content kept you engaged. So consumption of music, consumption of films, consumption of online content, YouTube, etc., everything increased. Then the next phenomenon, if you notice, that everybody started doing was lots and lots of online courses. And many people started doing secondary online courses to enhance a skill that they couldn't before. So therefore, a lot of creative learning started. People started spending lots of time doing that. The third was this make me visible, where if you see short form apps like TikTok, Moj, Maza, Takatak, all of these, they have started craving this need to be seen, the need to be recognized, the need to be the hero or the heroine of the piece. And these are small victories. So people started indulging in these. As content creators, we've been pushing all of these. And I will be remiss to say that I am equally to blame or not to blame, or to have added something positive, because we try to focus on education a lot, as you know. And we recently started doing a very interesting podcast called Ruk Jana Nahi, which is focusing on heroes of humanity from the pandemic. I said, why are people only talking of negative things? Let's talk of positive things. Let's talk of that rickshaw puller who became an ambulance with oxygen. Let's talk about the girl who gave up her social media and made 1,000 calls to provide meals to animals. So we started putting on positive content. So that was what we did as conscious content creators. As parents, I definitely noticed that this online consumption had shot up. A lot of this revenge buying, what they call, right? I mean, there was this phenomenon of revenge buying, that I haven't gone out shopping, so I will buy online and I'll buy a lot, right? And obviously all the people online started getting into that. Sales became like never before. There were more sales, more things happening. I think there, as a parent, we navigated a very interesting. My children, with the grace of God, are very grounded to the degree that, like, even if my daughter says she wants to shop, she'll come back to me with a bill which is like, she'll tell me saying it's 500 rupees for 10 things, and I feel like that's, it's so good if she's still buying 500 rupees ki 10 things, not each thing worth 10,000 rupees and 500 of them, because that's also what people end up doing nowadays. It's crazy. My son actually picked up a very interesting hobby, that he picked up the guitar suddenly out of the blue. And he used to be a drummer who gave up drumming with his school band because he couldn't find enough time to concentrate. But he's taken up the guitar in 2 months very positively. It's become my wife's wonderful evening, where he sort of always plays a tune to her every day, and she feels so nice. We started watching one film a week together, just as a family activity, saying, chalo, we can't get this content out, let's watch a film together. We tried to play a couple of board games, etc., but we failed because my son picks up really complex board games, which only he and I understand. And everybody else sort of, after a while, is like, this is too tough. This is not Ludo, you know. But it's at least good that we managed to do that. We have also, because now that we've come to Dubai for a bit, and it's more a transition. But in the time that we spent here, we actually also gave a couple of house chores to the children to do. You know, in India, people don't realize that, again, over a particular level, we are so privileged that we have 5 or 7 people helping you at home. Now, here, when you don't have that, I'm actually finding it's a bit of a navigation, but like, oh, the garbage has to be moved out by so-and-so, and the cleaning has to be done by so-and-so, and the beds have to be made by X. It's just giving us some semblance, but I know that these are some days we succeed and some days we horribly fail when everybody has a meltdown and everybody goes into their own rooms and somebody doesn't want to be here anymore and all that. But I think, you know, wo karna padta hai. It's a thing. Many years ago, Javed Akhtar साहब ने मुझसे एक चीज कही थी. I was traveling with him and my son had just been born, and I was like, you know, I want him to learn, I want him to study. And उन्होंने कहा, आप चाहते हैं आपका बेटा पढ़े, किताबें पढ़े? मैंने कहा जी. तो कहने लगे, आप पढ़िए. तो मैंने कहा, अच्छा. कहने लगे, आप चाहते हैं कि वो नेक हो और वो जो हो फर्माबरदार हो, आप होइए. So he said, children are mirrors who see whatever is around them and then they copy that. And that is why what Saloni said about socializing, that schools were about socializing, about learning social skills, how to navigate dealing with people your own age and your own thing. So वही कोशिश करते हैं और parents try their best. They sometimes fail, they sometimes succeed, and I really go through that up and down. ये प्रोफेसर साहब को तो देखा ही होगा, उन्होंने बहुत सारा माँ बापों को जो कि कोशिश कर रहे हैं, जूझ रहे हैं इस मोमेंट से. Saloni would have seen many of them. Arav and Sneha would have seen their own parents.
I totally identify with you, Roshanji. I totally identify with you, but I would
you,
just put in that parents don't fail till you are trying. Once you are a parent for life. So we don't fail, sir. Parenting is sowing seeds. और जब वो फसल बड़ी होती है तो आप भूल जाएंगे कि कितने seeds हमने.
How nice.
So we have to keep.
बहुत बड़ी बात है, बहुत बड़ी बात आपने कही. It's so true that the parents don't fail, they keep trying.
I take pride in being a mom of thousands. So many of my kids are now parents, but my own 2 boys. And in fact, Roshanji, elder one, 28 years old, he's right there in Dubai working with Goldman Sachs. And now he gives me the best parenting tips. He tells where I have been right. And you know, this is exactly जो आज आपने जावेद अख्तर भाई की बात कही, sir. This is something which I've really practiced all my life. Since I was never somebody who was a fitness freak, my children did not learn to exercise. But since I would read a lot of books, both of them are voracious readers. So, you know, children literally mirror what you do. But today's generation, sir, because they have, thanks to all the content which you people create, they have multiple ways of learning, not
true, very true, very true. Very true.
And that is why their inspiration, their learning comes from many other sources. And we as parents have to open that window. I think COVID really gave a lot of time for us to go back to basics, go back to the family value systems. I'm sure, Sultan, you would remember our grandparents having a rule that dinner time, everybody has to be on the table. Kisi ka koi kaam zaruri ho. Look at it today, everybody is on a gadget. So, you know, those are some rules I have in my family. Drop everything when it is 2 hours, no gadget time for everybody. Both my boys are great cooks, Roshanji. Thanks to always learning it. We have people around to help. Let's value them. So I had this. One day it is rest for the house help. Both the boys cook. You cook jhal muri, I am okay with it. But we are going to have non-fire cooking is what we started with, Sultan. And today, it's a very important skill for children to learn. And I think COVID was a very good time for parents to all that extra time which we had, Roshan sir, which we were busy running around here, there, packing kits, sending people there. If you could actually use them to learn things to do with your own hands. Because, you know, any productivity, Sultan, brings in positivity.
Right.
Very
what a lovely line.
That it was difficult to be positive, but you know, the most stressful situations give you seeds to be positive, because that is the time you can be your best in the challenging times. And that is
So
why
true.
the
So
last
true.
1.5 months, now, when I literally saw this kind of a distress, I think a lot of people again went back on our emotional needs. That a whole lot of amount of money which I saved thinking this is safety and security wasn't the COVID challenging it. That if 80,000 doesn't get you a bed, how much money can you save for being happy in your old age? So there was something else which we needed to save for our old age, not just money. And I
So
think
true.
Yes, wow.
I think the words of Javed Akhtar Saab, which Roshan mentioned about mirroring, and what Roshan himself spoke about, a lot of family time and responsibilities at home. I think these simple ones, and and the whole idea of, for all the parents who are listening in, you never fail as a parent. You always keep trying, and you always keep growing as a parent because your children are growing up. And I think so. That's so true. And I think for all those parents, especially now, very young parents who are putting too much pressure on themselves, because I can imagine the mother and the father working from home, taking care of the home and taking care of the child, must be so difficult, and must be frustrating. And for them, I think it's all of us are in this together, and
and
you're trying.
added to that, Sultan, you are supposed to sanitize all the time. You are supposed to be constantly guarding your house that COVID doesn't enter. It has made a lot of people very stressed out and paranoid.
In fact, that's one of the top things. If you actually look at some of the researches that have happened in the past, few months, one of the biggest things is that as little children, very very worried that Corona is going to land up in the houses. I think Corona is the new booth. A lot of mothers must be scaring children कि Corona आ जाएगा. Literally, it used to be Gabbar in the 1970s and 80s. I think it's going to be more of Corona these days.
Professor
Professor
Saab is
Saab,
having a exactly. I was saying that Professor Saab is laughing hearing many of our things. के सबसे ज़्यादा तजुर्बा उनको है, so
right.
he would know the best.
Right. So, Professor Saab, tell me, if you put yourself in the shoes of a parent or an educator, how much of school is required going forward, and how do you see the coming year in terms of schools opening up? I mean, should schools open up? Because आपने कहा कि online पे तो education हो ही जाता है, which is a fact. A lot of academics can happen. So, what is your opinion कि schools कैसे होने चाहिए और कितने ऑनलाइन ऑफलाइन होने चाहिए गोइंग फॉरवर्ड?
पहले तो एक बात हमको काफी अच्छी लगी कि जो काम करना है, अपने बच्चों से जो काम कराना है, उस काम को आप खुद कीजिए। तो अच्छा, सवेर में अगर हम उठते हैं तो हम बच्चों से ये नहीं कहें कि तुम उठ जाओ, नहीं, हमको उठ जाना है पहले। आप उठिए, आपको देख करके वो उठेंगे। आप अपना प्लेट खुद धोइए, बच्चे खुद धोने लगेंगे उसको। तो अपना पहले हमको स्ट्रगल करना है, उसको देख के बच्चे खुद करेंगे, एक बात। दूसरी बात है कि ऑनलाइन तो आनी ही चाहिए, अच्छी चीज़ है ये, लेकिन जाहिर सी बात है स्कूल तो खुलना है। अब इंशाल्लाह ऐसा सिचुएशन ऐसी आ रही है कि बहुत जल्द स्कूल वाला खुलेगा, थोड़ा स्ट्रेंथ को लेकर खुलेगा, लेकिन स्कूल का जो एनवायरनमेंट और कॉलेज का और जो दोस्तों को वो सब चीज़ तो हम लोग ऑनलाइन प्रोवाइड कर नहीं सकते हैं, लेकिन कम से कम ये है कि अभी जो नहीं है, उससे तो बेटर ये है कि हम ऑनलाइन से उनको जितना प्लेजर दे सकते हैं वो दें। हर तरह का वीडियोस बना कर उनको दें, हर तरह के जो स्कूल की एक्टिविटी है उसको बना करके दें, लेकिन स्कूल तो खुलना ही चाहिए। सारी चीज़ स्कूल की और कॉलेज की और यूनिवर्सिटीज़ की वो चीज़ थोड़ी ऑनलाइन हम ला सकते हैं, पॉसिबल नहीं है वो। इसलिए वो स्कूल तो खुलना चाहिए और खुलेगा जल्द ही, तो फिर हम लोग अदर एक्टिविटीज़ को उसके पूरा कर सकेंगे। लेकिन जब तक
बिल्कुल सही
जी,
क्योंकि स्कूल का जो माहौल है उसका कोई रिप्लेसमेंट नहीं है। स्कूल का जो सोशल एनवायरनमेंट जो होता है, and the learning that happens right from the school bus to the canteen to the playground to the auditorium, there's absolutely no online replacement for that.
Absolutely, Sultan. And the self-assessment it gives us.
True. So I have a common question for the two students and to Saloni, right? Saloni, I want you to help me out with this question, whereas it's a response from Arav and Sneha. Sneha and Arav, it is said that if somebody wants to get rid of smoking, and this is like a well-researched and established fact that if you quit smoking for 6 months, there are more than 90% chances that you will never smoke again. That means if you have to get rid of any habit, if you can practice it for 6 months, you will get rid of that habit if you don't want. Today, children have not gone to school for 1 year. That means they don't have a habit of going to school. How do you see, Araf, for you when you go back to college? And I hope that very soon colleges open and you can go back to physical college. And Sneha, when you go back to school, hopefully in the next 3-4 months, I see that's my wish, and I hope that schools open up. You've lost the habit of going to school. How is it going to be different? What do you see are going to be the positives and the negatives of going back to school? Sneha, let me start with you, darling.
Sir, I think going to school as of now, I think personally, I don't see anything difficult or negative in this whole situation because I've been dying to go to school. So, of course, that whole thing of, say, getting up early and, getting ready and catching the school bus, because nowadays, a lot of us, even teachers know this, there's nothing to hide that, a lot of us attend our class in the bed and we're almost half asleep sometimes if we have early morning classes. And so that might be the little catch part of it, where getting up early and catching the bus and all of that. But otherwise, getting to meet your friends in person, meeting teachers in person. Now we even want to, I mean, the smell of the classroom and just the sight of the blackboard and the chalk and actually, because I think even for that matter, books, now we barely know half the times where our books are when we're doing classes at home. So having those books on your desk and doing some, I mean, with all the friends around and things, you always have this little gossiping or some sort of musty going on in class all the time, and then teachers punishing. And so technically everything together, I think that is the joy of going to school, and that is way over all the little problems and the little coming out of comfort zone that we might have to face, when physical.
But you're looking forward to it. You said
yes,
you're desperately looking forward to it.
Desperately dying to go to school. Yes, the joy of
Desperately
going to
dying
school and everything else. Yeah, the joy of going to school is way over all the uncomfort which comes with it.
Right. So Sneha, it reminds me, for years I've seen cartoons, I've seen, animated versions. Whenever the school bell rings, you've got these children running out happily, right? And that's what we've been so used to. And today the scenario is exactly the opposite, where all kids are waiting for that bell to ring and for them to get back into school. And for all those authorities listening in, through this medium of advantage support and the media that covers this tomorrow, please remember what Sneha said. The children are desperately waiting to get back to school. So, Arav, what are your thoughts of starting college now physically?
Well, actually, for school itself, we had the opportunity to attend our offline school from October because COVID cases were in a state of gradual decline in October. So we renewed our offline classes and our offline lab assignments from November. So initially, of course, everyone was quite excited that we are going back to school and everything was blessed and everything was happy. But as soon as we started giving tests and assignments and things like that, so the life before offline school seemed much more satisfactory. But as it's stated in a beautiful quote that you only miss the light when it starts to snow. So, of course, deep down, we all knew that even though giving online exams was definitely better than giving offline exams, the aspect of not attending school was a really psychological thing that did not benefit us for entirety. And for the college itself now, because we weren't able to make a lot of memories in our schools last year, so we have a lot of expectations. I personally have a lot of expectations from college, and it really scares me that I might not be able to attend my first week of college, or might not get a head start by making friends and socializing with all of them. But of course, the situation demands it. And throughout the past year, one thing that I've learned is that when things are not in your hand, there's literally no sense in delivering upon them or thinking about them. So if the situation demands it, then it would be fine. But I really look forward to attending college and remaking the memories that I may not have been able to make in my last year of school.
Yeah, and I'm absolutely with you, and I hope and pray that Arav, you and your entire generation goes back into physical education very soon. When I said physically going into a school and college very soon. Saloni, I'm taking that question to you, but a little more deeper in terms of its perspective. I'm talking about habits that have changed. You know, things like discipline have been a key factor in the way our education was run in the past, and the online education has made the whole education scenario very informal. So how do you see teachers and students dealing with that when they get back into the formal environment? Because we use the word formal for education in there.
Absolutely. And this informal and formal education, Sultan, what we are going to see now would be a blended mode. And I would suggest that since we are opening schools, it is nice to hear. And, I've been involved in a study where we have collected data from 5,000 students. And what Sneha and Arav said, these are the mixed feelings. People want to get back to school because going to school is like life is being into a structure, which we call discipline as adults, that there is a routine, there is a time to get up. But a very large challenge would be teachers again understanding the need and expecting from children to come back from the technology dependence to the real class. So this blended version of learning should be adopted. There has to be a need of extensive teachers training in terms of their instructions, in terms of their evaluation process, in terms of their classroom behavior expectation. We would be having a catastrophe, Sultan, that if children like Sneha and hundreds of them go back to school with a sense of, I just want to sit in my class. The other day a principal told me, this will only my class 12. They just requested, sir, can we come one day to sit in our class 12? We actually the whole year never sat and now we don't even have an exam. Can we just come and sit in that classroom? And that is emotional and psychological well-being for me. And that is why our teachers cannot get into the classrooms. Teachers are also waiting that a part of your work becomes a part of your self-esteem and identity. But they cannot go back, sigh a relief, okay, schools are open, get into the classroom and say, children, keep quiet. Then we are in for trouble because we will have to have a lot of space created for socializing in schools. We will have to help a lot of children with empathy on moving away from gadget dependency, short attention span, lack of concentration, not ability to listen and comprehend and assimilate a lesson, because I have been used to recording your lesson and seeing a Google video and I would do my assignment. I was still conceptually learning, Sultan. Now you bring me back to classroom. So I am just shutting off every 5 minutes because I have trained myself for last 1 year that I know the content. I don't have to listen to the whole. So this learning models jo hamare the based on primarily auditory symptoms, they have been challenged. And when your auditory input will be challenged, then visual is heightened. Everything is scroll. Just look at it. How many of us are able to read a text message more than 3 screens? You just scroll it through and you think that, no, I've understood what this guy is trying to say. So, it is happening with all of us. Attention span is much lower. Ability to listen and assimilate the traditional learning mode is totally challenged now. So teachers, and my request to Professor Syed and a whole lot of people who have a deeper understanding of education beyond just a syllabus or a content delivery, a lot of help needs to be given to teachers for this transition. We will also have to create a little different kind of timetables where there'll be allotted periods which could be called that these are the real periods for socializing. So there is a group work, there is only an oral class. Everybody only has to speak and we will not do any written work. With younger children, Sultan, my major concern is the children who were between 3 to 6 years. Some of our children never started school. They are still at home. So the basic hours of reading, writing, which starts between 3 to 6 years, that is majorly challenged. So junior schools will really have to revamp their syllabus, go back into a lot of blended learning, maybe take parents as partners, in coaching parents, because you cannot have 7 hours, 8 hours of training to these younger kids. So many of them have aversion to writing. They haven't written for a year because there was no assignment where a teacher was checking your notebook. So digital learning was engaging some activity. I was reading, I was seeing a video. Now for me to go and sit in the class and start writing question answer, we are asking too much, Sultan. So it's a lot of transition planning, lot of grading of evaluation with middle and senior school, lot of training of teachers to enhance social, life skills, emotional well-being, and then bringing in academic to blend with it. Because our children are smart, they will be able to learn content. But these needs, which have been like a 1.5 year of, I would say, baggage, this needs to be catered. If we are going to deny it, Sultan, again I come back, any denial leads to disaster. But if you
True.
accept it and deal with it, we will find our ways. We might not be perfect, but we have to deal with it. We cannot open school and have a desire and a wishful thinking everything is back to normal. I would rather say, let's accept the new normal. Let's accept it with an open eyes. And I've always said, accept, be very aware, and then act on it. Then only things will start moving in a fashion. So it is
Right.
more about
When you mention these things, I'm reminded, Saloni, and I'm sure you will resonate, that for almost 2 decades, I've been talking to schools about things like blended learning. We've been talking about things like flipped classroom. We've been talking about things like online education. We've been talking about focusing on life skills, on overall development. And if schools don't do that now, I have a strong feeling they might cease to exist in the existing format, because they need to become centers of experiences more than centers of academic excellence, which is what a lot of schools call them. So let me go to Roshan.
Absolutely agree with you, Sultan. And experiential learning and a lot of training for teachers again has become a focus.
Right. So Roshan, I'm coming to you with 2 questions. One, I want you, because I know you from the heart. I mean, your love and your passion for your school is still so strong, right? I want you to put on a hat of a student, and what are those things you would have done and not done? Because sometimes I've also imagined myself as a student in school or college in this pandemic. On the other hand, you being, I can call you a researcher, because the kind of extensive learning that you do and looking up of information across genres. What are your thoughts on the kind of vaccination? Because we're talking about 12 plus years in some countries, including Dubai, where you are, where there are a lot of children getting vaccinated. What are your thoughts on how this prevention through vaccines is going to work for children? So let me start with the first, two parts of the question for you, Roshan.
No, you
Before
know,
we wind up with Saloni's last question. Yeah.
No, thank you, Sultan, and thank you for taking me back to school. Actually, recently I suffered a bit of a personal tragedy that the person who mentored me and made me a lot of what I am today, my principal in school, passed away due to COVID, and it was a really traumatic time and a time that took me back, because I couldn't go back to Lucknow and meet him or even attend his service. But when I look back at school, frankly, I keep trying to explain this to people, that I am a lot of what I am today because of the experiences I had at school and the experimentation that I was allowed to do at school. It wasn't about just excellence, though I did excel in many things, but the ability to be able to finish classes at 1:30, go and do a debate rehearsal, do a dramatics practice, try and make a band which would fail, miserably fail at playing football. I was a terrible sports person, but just the fact of being able to try out so many things. When I was doing my mass communication, I used to not do some of my assignments till a teacher told me, saying that, Roshan, the amount of money that is being spent in allowing you to experiment in mass comm, when you go, उन्होंने कहा था, मुझे हिंदी में आता है, कहने लगे कि जितनी फिल्म रील तुम वेस्ट कर रहे हो ना, उतनी तुम्हें भीख मांग के भी नहीं मिलेगी बाहर. Because we used to get so much material for free, right? We used to get film reels and cameras to shoot. And he said, outside you'd be begging people and they won't give it to you. And as a student, ये सारी चीजें मिल रही हैं. So I think it's a laboratory for experimentation, which is what I really would have been doing. And I mean, even today when I go back to school, I'm the first person to jump in and say, let's do an old boys play, let's do this, let's do that. Because I just love getting people together and doing things. Last week, I attended a workshop online, which was for actors. And I'm a director more than an actor, but I enjoyed it because I knew there was a very famous lady who teaches you how to audition on Zoom. Now, auditioning on Zoom is something I didn't know. And when she was talking about the energy and the kinetic energy of performance, it was beautiful. And there were about 250 people who attended. Tess Joseph was doing the session, Sultan, you know her well. And, there were 250 people who were so desperate for an opportunity to just practice those lines that I said, listen, let's just do an online play. Because, you can always create opportunities for people to work together. And that's what I like doing. I believe that we should hopefully give children those opportunities. As for vaccination, my genuine view is that there are still so many half-truths and partial truths circulating that nobody knows what is the right cause. You want to do the right thing by your children, but then you read saying, oh my God, people under 40 are suddenly dying of heart attacks. Oh, this one had a lung collapse, that one had this. And, you're just stuck in between. Do you want to do the right thing, but what if the step you took turns out to be wrong later? So I know a lot of hesitancy, but even in vaccines now, there is a vaccine hierarchy. So if you've taken Pfizer or Johnson, oh my God, you must be absolutely fine. If you took anything after that, God help you. And it's strange. So like even here, I hear people talking and saying, no, the Chinese one is great and Pfizer is great, but don't take this and don't take that. So I don't know. I believe in science. I believe in medicine, and therefore I'm very willing to do it myself, give it to my children, and I hope we can do that so that they can return. I was speaking to somebody in the US day before who said that now with vaccination, she was in California. She said that they've clearly declared that the chance of getting the virus in California declared is 0.3%. Now that's a chance I can live, right? And that's it. So let's go ahead and do it. Let's not, but I unfortunately feel that there's been such mismanagement in terms of, there was a Rohan Joshi put up something wonderful the other day, which is where he's acting as a person and saying, 3 hafte mein 2 vaccine. Then he turns and says, 1 vaccine, 6 mahine mein. Then he says, 1 vaccine, 2 saal mein. Then he says, 1 vaccine, 5 saal ke baad. Then he says, who knows when? Because it's just that why is so much misinformation being spread if somebody has mismanaged something is what terribly pains me, because that's just creating more and more reasons for people to have debates and, arguments. And we need to be on one path rather than 1,000 different paths at the moment, which is what we are.
Right. I think it's an established fact that vaccination is something which is very, very relevant. And, it's proven across the world today. There's a huge hesitancy, especially in rural parts, and that's where Advantage Care is also trying to do a lot of work. But for all those parents who are listening in, I think very soon we'll have the 12+ year children who will